You remember that they're changing my voice. Now let's go over the I am part that is very key and definitive. Perhaps the most important I am in the whole Bible is in Mark 14, verse 62. Now why is that? Because it says, I am, said Jesus, and you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. New Living Translation. Jesus said, I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the place of power, at God's right hand and coming on the clouds of heaven. It says in Isaiah, right, God's right hand strikes them down because they're rebelling. So what is the I am, right? I am the bread of life, the good shepherd, the wonderful counselor, the mighty God, the way, the truth, and the life, the root and offspring of David, and so on and so forth. The gate, the light of the world, the light of life. These things are somewhat vague, except for mighty God. But when he says, hey, I am the Messiah, what does he say to them? He say, well, I'm the bread of life and you should know what I mean. No, when he makes it clear to them and they get really angry, he basically says, I am, and I'm the top martial artist ever possible, which makes me the Son of God. And you say, well, it doesn't say that. It does say that. You're just not interpreting it correctly. One way you can translate this is, I am, said Jesus, and you will see the Son of Man, who is the top martial artist ever possible, seated at the right hand of the Mighty One, and coming on the clouds of heaven. The clouds of God's anger, the clouds that's a collection of the righteous. Matthew 24. It says, the trumpet will be sounded, and the elect will be gathered from the four winds into the clouds. The clouds of the warriors who stood firm to the end. The clouds of the martyrs. The clouds of the true prophets. The clouds of the children of God. The clouds of those who obey God's command. The clouds of the armies of heaven. The cloud of the spirit of righteousness. The warrior spirit of God. Luke 10:18, it says, he replied, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Now they're fuming me. You have to forgive me, but I'm doing a pretty good job, so I'm going to proceed. Who can proclaim his mighty acts? You have the word pro and you have the word aim and the word proclaim. The Lord weighs the heart. It weighs the motives. Why was Satan thrown out of heaven? Because God's warrior spirit doesn't tolerate rebellious dogs. So he was thrown out with a quickness. He fell like lightning. It says in Matthew 24, as you'll see lightning shine from one place and another, so it will be with the coming of the Son of Man. Right? The top martial artist strikes. Without holiness, no one will see God. Hebrews. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Matthew 5, I believe it's verse 8. We went over it a few videos back. Because I'm actually making this video in the midst of making my key parts of Matthew video. And I've gone over Matthew, the whole book, at least one time. I've gone over Luke. I've gone over John. I've got, in terms of in the videos, one time where I recorded it in the videos. Because I type this up, I underline, I highlight, I take notes. I go above and beyond what the vast majority of people do in terms of analyzing it carefully. Where they just read it once, form an opinion, and start arguing with each other. I analyze it carefully. I search my heart. I look in terms of what's just. Because when you interpret it in a way that isn't just, then you're calling God unjust. It says in Isaiah, right, that he will speed the cause of righteousness and justice. Isaiah 16:5. That he won't stop until victory is brought forth through justice. Elsewhere in Isaiah. He will bring justice to the nations. So the interpretation has to include bringing generational justice. Job 20 verse 6. Though the pride of the godless person reaches to the heavens and his head touches the clouds, he will perish forever like his own dung. Those who have seen him will say, where is he? Right? Because he no longer has a soul. Or his soul is so rotten that it can't be seen. He's not expressing. Surely he will have no respite from his craving. He cannot save himself by his treasure. Nothing is left for him to devour. His prosperity will not endure. In the midst of his plenty, distress will overtake him. The full force of misery will come upon him. Again, store riches in heaven. Those who have plenty on earth, Their guilt is already rotten in their soul. Okay. When he has filled his belly, God will vent his burning anger against him and rain his bows on him. Though he flees from an iron weapon, a bronze-tipped arrow pierces him. So what is God doing to him? Well, the right hand of God, the top martial artist ever, is firing away at him, his bows. Right? He flees from one martial art angle like a sword. And he gets hit by an arrow or a spear. Or gets smacked by a shield and falls on the ground. He gets stabbed with a dagger. From this angle or that angle. Angels work angles. That's what it's saying. And it's saying it using the warrior, what you might call warrior, right? Because this is a story. The warrior ideas that were available to the people at the time. They didn't understand martial arts to a high African martial art level. They understood it in terms of putting on armor and having chariots and so on and so forth, and hand-to-hand combat from there, and things of that nature. He pulls it out of his back, the gleaming point of his liver. Terrors will come over him. Total darkness lies in wait for his treasures. A fire unfanned will consume him and devour what is left in his tent. The heavens will expose his guilt. The earth will rise up against him, right? They'll turn against each other. See, Satan is the god of this world. He's in the spirit of the world, of worldliness. So they turn against each other with their worldliness. The earth, in more than one sense, rises up against him. A flood will carry off his house, rushing waters on the day of God's wrath. Such is the fate God allots the wicked, the heritage appointed for them by God. If you look up martial arts, I believe still on Wikipedia, it'll say that martial arts includes the intangible heritage. One's intangible heritage. The heritage that God allots for the wicked is that they rot and then they go to hell and they betray their children. You see that in Job 26 verse 13. Here is the fate God allots to the wicked, the heritage a ruthless man receives from the Almighty. However many his children, their fate is the sword. His offspring will never have enough to eat. Now, are they talking about enough food in this world? Imagine some angry redneck or some crazy businessman arguing that because his children have enough literal food to eat, and he's rich in terms of worldly wealth, and he's wretched and poor and a blind fool in terms of spiritually speaking, that he would argue that means that it's not talking about him. No. It must be figurative, because we know there's countless wicked people, and including in the Bible, that their children had plenty of literal food to eat. Job 30 verse 11. Now that God has unstrung my bow and afflicted me, they throw off restraint in my presence. On my right the tribe attacks. They lay snares for my feet. They build siege ramps against me. No one can help them, they say. They advance as though a gaping breach. Amid the ruins they come rolling in. Terrors overwhelm me. My dignity is driven away as by the wind. My safety vanishes like a cloud. You also see in Job that says the pride of the wicked person touches the cloud, and that God governs the nations. He nourishes and governs the nations with the cloud. So the cloud is clearly, like in Lamentations, the anger of God. It's compared to chariots in Jeremiah 4:13 and elsewhere. Okay. Psalm 18, it talks about the clouds under God's feet when he's in a warrior spirit. So it's a warrior cloud. It's a martial arts spirit. It's not the spirit of just a mere pastor in a church. He's in the spirit of conforming to the state. And it's clear. I knew it since I was a little kid. I knew without any doubt that the people in church were in the common white spirit of the state of the United States of America. You know, the state of being, and the state of California, and so on and so forth. I knew that beyond any doubt. I'm sure you all know that as well. When it says the nations in Revelations gather up to take on God, how could the preachers and priests be in the spirit of the state and still be in the spirit of God? They couldn't. They serve money. They don't serve God. They serve conformity, as conniving con men who serve the condescending. As the con descends and gives people false confidence. It's even in their own wordplay. It's their language, not mine. I'm just exposing the works of the wicked. I have nothing to do with it. So we see that the cloud, like the cloud, burst. In Isaiah 30, Isaiah said to you, so to speak, if he's the one who wrote it, he said, if they still don't get it, go back to the book of Isaiah and bring up Isaiah verse 30, where he goes into great detail about how the cloud burst is part of the striking martial arts strikes of God. There's a reason why it's called a sword of scripture, not a pen or a trowel or a chemistry kit or anything else, because it's a warrior spirit. That's what's being pointed to. You see the warrior spirit in the top martial artist ever. That's why it's described that way. The cloud burst, thunderstorm, and hail. The storm of the Lord bursting forth, swirling down on the heads of the wicked. The whirlwind of the Lord scattering the Jews, scattering the enemies of God, scattering everybody who cheats me out of my right to lead. They don't get their thoughts together where it matters most. You can cause me to stumble on my words all day and have some disorganized thinking as a result of being poisoned and fumed with 23 witnesses on record. You can play stupid about it. But it doesn't change the fact that your thoughts are scattered supernaturally by God, and mere worms using technology like inferior forms of life are the ones interfering with my cognitive processes. That's the bottom line. And you people wouldn't even dream of going on record saying you put it on the souls of your families that I'm wrong. You would not dream of doing that, but that's what you're doing by your actions. You're leading them astray because you're horrible parents. You hate your children enough to tell them to obey the satanic pedos in charge of the state instead of the Son of God. You hate them with all your heart.